Hello and welcome, I'm Cody Koch. This video is part of my question and answer series in which people ask me questions and I give them an answer via video. Let's get to it. Cody, who manages the businesses you acquire? So we buy larger businesses, and I define that as businesses that make over $500,000 a year in earnings, as defined by EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Because we target those larger businesses, we can actually afford to have professional management in place to manage the business full time. In the vast majority of cases, businesses that make less than $500,000 a year in earnings cannot actually afford a professional management team to oversee the business. In those cases, typically the owner is also the manager of those businesses in those situations. So I have a strict rule that we follow very carefully, and that is the businesses that we acquire must either come with a manager at the time of the acquisition or have a strong secondary manager in place who is ready to be promoted into the primary manager's role after the acquisition. These managers in many cases have been with these businesses for years. They really know the ins and the outs of the business quite a bit. A lot of the time they're very knowledgeable, they're very skilled, they're very well paid, and quite frankly, they would do a better job at managing that business than I would. One major benefit of making sure the management is already in-house on some level is that when a manager is put in place after the acquisition, the culture typically does not change very dramatically, which is a big concern I typically have when acquiring a business. Is I don't want the culture to shift too much because it dramatically increases risks of the business. By changing, the business could potentially get in trouble at some point. But by having that manager in place who's already part of the culture, very little typically will change about the business, and so therefore it significantly lowers risk and protects us in the acquisition. After the acquisition, there's something I learned from one of my mentors, was to always ensure there are 2 layers of management in place at any given time. But shortly afterward, we promote, preferably from within the business, someone to the secondary manager position, and within 6 to 9 months, that secondary manager must be trained up and able to take over as a full-time manager in the business, just in case the primary manager leaves or gets hit by a bus, let's say. So within 6 to 9 months after the acquisition, we have 2 layers of management which can substantially lower our risks and increase the potential rewards simply because we now have a team of people in place who are very focused on the long-term viability of the business in the future and trying to improve and grow the business over time. Generally speaking, we find hiring managers from within is a better idea. We do not want to hire the primary manager from outside the business and bring them on board. We want the primary manager to already be involved in the business for the simple reason, like I said, we don't want to change very much after we acquire the business. On the other hand, a secondary manager, we prefer to promote the secondary manager from within, but we are open to hiring from the outside secondary managers who will be underneath the primary manager for the foreseeable future. Please hit that like button and subscribe, and I thank you for watching.